Well, back to politics now. The Greens party room has shrunk even further with the defection of WA Senator Dorinda Cox to Labor. Joining us now from Brisbane is the Leader of the Greens, Larissa Waters. Good morning to you.
Hi, Bridget, James, how are you going?
Yeah, we're well, thanks. Look, why do you think Dorinda Cox decided to leave the Greens? Had relationships between Senator Cox and others within the party deteriorated?
Well, Dorinda spoke for herself yesterday and said that her values aligned more closely with the Labor Party, and people need to have a values fit with the party that they seek to represent. And obviously, what with Labor having decided just this last week to approve an absolute carbon bomb off the coast of WA, which would not only have massive climate impacts, but which would have huge impacts on ancient rock art. Those values are not consistent with Greens' values. We've opposed that, but Senator Cox has made her decision that party is a better fit for her, and we wish her nothing but the best.
When did you become aware that she was going to leave the Greens?
Dorinda called me about an hour before her press conference with the Prime Minister, and we had a very calm and measured conversation about it, and I did genuinely wish her all the best. There's no animosity there. It's obviously disappointing for us to lose a Greens senator, but Dorinda has said her values lie there, and you've got to be true to yourself, don't you?
You've lost two Indigenous senators from the Greens. You've now got no First Nations representative, certainly at a federal level. What do you need to look at now? I mean, why have you had two Aboriginal women walk away from the party?
Well, look, I think there's two very different reasons why those strong First Nations women made the decisions that they made, and it was definitely their call to make. And Senator Thorpe's obviously gone on to be a really strong voice in the Parliament, and I'm sure Senator Cox will continue to work for the issues that are meaningful for her. But the Greens remain entirely committed to strong advocacy on truth-telling, on treaties, on justice, on healing, on reparations. Our policies are still very firm for First Nations justice, and we won't be changing course in that regard. And we'll continue to really push on those issues. I'm not convinced that the Labor Party is going to really be terribly strong on that issue.
However, I mean, the Labor Party now has a significant amount of First Nations people in the Senate and some in the lower house also. So, I mean, there has to be a lesson learnt, doesn't there? If you've got two Indigenous women walking away from the party, what message does that tell you, Larissa? Do you have to have a look at whether or not you've got proper Aboriginal representation at a grassroots level?
Well, we do certainly have a bevy of grassroots First Nations members of our party, Bridget, and we're really proud of that. And our policies have been crafted by those folk and our broader membership, and they are strong on truth-telling and treaties and justice. And I hope that Labor takes the message that their former Senator Pat Dodson was giving them last week, which was not to give up on truth-telling and treaties. I hope that they want to progress that. Certainly the Greens want to progress those issues. I'm not convinced that they're going to, but we've got to be an optimist, don't you?
Well, you certainly do in politics, I'm sure. Now, let's move to the Woodside decision. You have said this is, your words, a carbon bomb. What does this tell you now about our environment laws in Australia, and will this be a central issue in this new term of Parliament for the Greens?
Look, it really will, Bridget. We've just seen the biggest dirty gas project approved. And of course, they put it off until just after the election. How convenient, because I think the Labor Party realised that their own voters would be horrified that they've just given an approval to a big dirty gas giant for yet more fossil fuel carbon pollution all the way out to 2070. I really think that's not what people voted for, and it's very telling that they kept delaying it until after the election. And it also shows you just how broken our environmental laws are. They don't have a climate trigger in them. The Greens have been trying to fix that for quite some time now, and we will continue to try to fix that. It's pretty clear that when the gas giants say jump, the two major political parties say how high. And I think the fact that millions of dollars in political donations have been made by the gas and coal and fossil fuel companies to both sides of politics really is very telling. We've got to clean up those donations laws, and we've got to stop having massive fossil fuels approved. The country says it's committed to net zero by 2050. Well, this approval was entirely inconsistent with that. We now have the Liberal Party not even sure that they want to keep net zero anymore, and the Labor Party taking a decision which is really in conflict with net zero by 2050.
So what
climate
would be the
wars
what
should not be wars. We've got to get beyond politics on this and start listening to science.
And what are the mechanisms you'll use to negotiate, as you've put it, better environmental laws? Do you use your Senate majority to do that? How do you get to the table with the government to get what you want on these laws and this legislation going forward?
Well, we've heard the community who just can't take any more climate turbocharged natural disasters, and we bring their voices to our negotiations. We will still be in the sole balance of power in the Senate, so the government does have a decision to take. Do they want to just tweak these laws, really have the status quo, not actually protect the environment, the planet or community safety? And they can take that option and work with the Liberal Party. Or do they actually want environmental laws that protect this beautiful natural world that sustains us all? Do they want to stand side by side with communities and protect us from those worsening climate-driven natural disasters? They can do that in working with the Greens. Now, this is obviously an issue very close to our hearts, along with things like the housing crisis and the cost of living crisis, but we can have economic prosperity and job creation with that genuine transition to renewable energy. And so that's the pathway the government needs to choose to take. They can work with us and fix the problems the country's facing, or they can just tinker and deliver the status quo with the coalition.